ॐ शुक्लां भरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। अगजाननपद्मार्कं गजाननमहर्निशम् अनेकदन्तं भक्तानाम् एकदन्तमुपास्महे। श्रीमहागणपतये नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां श्रीहयग्रीवमुपास्महे। श्रीहयग्रीवमूर्तये नमः। सरस्वति नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। श्रीमहासरस्वत्यै नमः। उमाकोमलहस्ताब्जसम्भावितललाटकं हिरण्यकुण्डलं वन्दे कुमारं पुष्करस्वजं। வெற்றிவேல் முருகனுக்கு ஹரஹரோஹரா. லோகவீரியம் மகாபூஜ்யம் சர்வரக்ஷாகரம் விபும் பார்வதி ஹிருதயானந்தம் சாஸ்தாரம் பிரணமாம்யகம். சுவாமியே சரணமையப்பா. வாகர்த்தாவிவ சம்பிரக்தௌ வாகர்த்த பிரதிபத்தகே जगतः पितरौ वन्दे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ। श्री पार्वती परमेश्वराभ्यां नमः। कोमलं पूजयन् वेणुं श्यामलोऽयं कुमारकः वेदवेद्यं परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। पीताम्बरं करविराजितचक्रशङ्खकौमोदकी सरसिजं करुणासमुद्रं राधासहायम् अतिसुन्दरमन्दहासं वातालयेशम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। कृष्णो रक्षतु मां चराचरगुरुः कृष्णं नमस्ये सदा। कृष्णेनैव सुरक्षितोऽहमसकृत् कृष्णाय दत्तं मनः। कृष्णादेव समुद्भवो मम विभो कृष्णस्य दासोऽस्म्यहं। कृष्णे भक्तिरचञ्चलास्तु भगवन् हे कृष्ण तुभ्यं नमः। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं नम्राणां सन्निधत्ते सततमपि पुरस्तैरणभ्यर्थितानपि आर्तान् कामानजस्रं वितरति परमानन्दसान्द्रां गतिं च। इत्थं निःशेषलभ्यो निरवधिकफलः पारिजातो हरे त्वं क्षुद्रं तं शक्रवाटी द्रुममभिलषति व्यर्थमर्त्यव्रजोऽयं। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं श्रीभट्टपादम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। वंशीविभूषितकरात् नवनीरदाभात् पीताम्बरात् अरुणबिम्बफलादरोष्टात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखात् अरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परं किमपि तत्त्वमहं न जाने। കൈരണ്ടും കൂപ്പി ഞാൻ വീണ്ടുമീറക്കുന്നു നീരജലോചന നിന്നോടായി ഏതീനു മന്യനെ കുമ്പീരേണ്ടാത്തോരു രീതിയിൽ നീ എന്നെ പാലിക്കെന്നായി. കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ. Good morning, everyone. All right, so we'll have to do a review of the few stanzas of 88 and then go to 89. Let me see. Viharini, you can do one, and Jyoti ji can do one. 88 and 89.
Dasakam 80 from stanza 7, correct?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, from stanza 7, yes.
Thank you. Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Dashakam 88. Santano Gopala Prakyanam. Sardam Tena Pratichim. Sorry, can you remind me the tune?
தேனக்கு அப்புறம் காமா இருக்கு. சார்த்தம் தேன பிரதீச்சீம் திசமதி ஜவினா.
Thank you. Sardam Tena Praticim Dishamati Javinasyandanenabhiyato Lokam Vyatitaha Timirabharamato Chakradhamna Nirundhan Chakramshu Krishtadrishtim Sthitamata Vijayam Pashyeti Varam Pare Tvam Pradadarshaha Kimapi hitamasam duram padam te tatrasinam bhujangadipashayanatale divyabhushayudadyaihi avitam pitachelam pratinavajaladashyaamalam shrimadangam मूर्तीनाम् ईशितारं परमिह तृसृणामेकमर्थं श्रुतीनां त्वामेव त्वं परात्मन् प्रियसखसहितो नेमितक्षेमरूपम् युवां मामेव द्वावधिकविवृतान्तिहृततया विभिन्नौ सन्दृष्टं स्वयमहमहर्षां द्विजसुतान् नयेतं द्रागेतानित खलु वितीर्णान् पुनरमून् द्विजायादायादाः प्रणुतमहिमा पाण्डुजनुषा
एवं first mameva, அதுக்கப்புறம் there is a pause, and then it's third line dragetaniti khalu.
Dragetaniti khalu.
Yeah.
Evam नानाविहारैर्जगदभिरमयन् वृष्णिवंशं प्रपुष्णन् ईजानो यज्ञभेदैः अतुलविहृतिभिः प्रीणयन्नेन नेत्राः भूभारक्षेपदम्बात् पदकमलजुषां मोक्षणायावतीर्णः पूर्णं ब्रह्मैव साक्षात् यदुषमनुजतारूषितस्त्वं व्यलासीः प्रायेण द्वारवत्याम् अवृतदयितदा नारदस्त्वद्रत्सार्धः तस्माल्लेभे कदाचित् खलु सुकृतनिधिस्तत्त्वपिता तत्त्वबोधम् त्वत्पिता तत्त्वबोधम् भक्तानाम् अग्रयायी स च खलु मतिमा भक्तानाम् अग्रयायी स च खलु मतिमान् उद्धवस्त्वत्त एव प्राप्तो विज्ञानसारं सखिल जनहितायाधुनास्ते बदर्याम् सोऽयं कृष्णावतारो जयति तव विभो यत्र सौहार्दभीतिः स्नेहद्वेषानुराग प्रवृत्तिभिरतुलैः आश्रमैर्योगभेदैः आर्तिं तीर्त्वा समस्ताम् अमृतपदमगुः सर्वतः सर्वलोकाः सत्वं विश्वार्तिशान्त्यै पवनपुरपते भक्तिपूर्त्यै च भूयाः सत्वं विश्वार्तिशान्त्यै पवनपुरपते भक्तिपूर्त्यै च भूयाः सत्वं विश्वार्तिशान्त्यै पवनपुरपते भक्तिपूर्त्यै च भूयाः. श्री कृष्णाय परब्रह्मणे नमः.
श्री कृष्णाय परब्रह्मणे नमः. दशकम् 89 मृगासुरवधवर्णनम्. रमा जाने यदिह तव भक्तेषु विभवो न सद्यः सम्पद्यास्ते तदिह मदकृत्वा दशमिनां प्रशान्तिं कृत्वैव प्रतिशसि ततः काममखिलं प्रशान्तेषु क्षिप्रं न खलु भवदीयेच्युति कथा सद्यः प्रसादरुषितान् विधिशङ्करादीन् दीन केचिद्दिभो निजगुणानुगुणं भजन्तः भ्रष्टा भवन्ति बदकष्टमदीर्घदृष्ट्या स्पष्टं वृकासुर उदाहरणं किलास्मिन् शकुनि च सतु नारदमेकदा त्वरिततोषमपृच्छदधीश्वरं सजति देशगिरीशमुपासितुं न तु भवन्तमबन्धुमसाधुषु तप्तस्तप्त्वा घोरं स खलु कुपितः सप्तमदिने शिरच्छित्वा सद्यः पुरहरमुपस्थाप्य पुरतः अधिक्षुद्रं रौद्रं शिरसि करदानेन निधनं जगन्नाथाद्वव्रे भवति विमुखानां क्व शुभधीः मोक्तारं बन्धमुक्तो हरिणपदिरिव प्राद्रवत्सोद्धरुद्रं दैत्याद्भीत्यास्मदेवो दिशि दिशि वलदे पृष्ठदो दत्तदृष्टिः तूष्णीके सर्वलोके तव पदमधिरोक्ष्यन्तमुद्वीक्ष्य सर्वं दूराद्देवाग्रतस्त्वं पडुवडुवपुषा तस्थिषे दानवाय भद्रं ते शाकुनेय भ्रमसि किमधुना त्वं पिशाचस्य वाचा सन्देहश्चेन्मदुक्तौ तव किमु न करोष्यङ्गुलीमङ्गमौलौ इत्थं त्वद्वाक्यमूढः शिरसि कृतकरः सोपतच्छिन्नपादं भ्रंशो ह्येवं परोपासितुरपि च गतिः शूलिनोऽपि त्वमेव.
So continue from 7. Minu, you can be a student, and Krishnanji, you can be a student. So start from 7. 7 again, the tune changes. Bhrugum kila saraswati nikatavasinastāpasaha trimurtishu samadishannadika sattvatam veditum ayam punaranadarat uditaruddharoshe vidhau hare pichajihimsishau girijaya dhrite tvamaghat. The previous class, we saw about this Vrikasura, right? That episode is over. So Vrikasura, who then got the boon from Shiva, and then somehow the Narayana came in the form of a Brahmana boy and then had him touch his own head and he got burnt to ashes. So that was Vrikasura's story. Now a new story, completely new one. So one time, a group of sages, they were performing some Vedic sacrifices on the banks of river Saraswati, and they had this question among the trinity of Devas: who has the most sattvika guna? Who's fully sattvic with no presence of rajas or tamo guna? Rajas is desire or passion. Tamas is a little bit of anger, ignorance, all of that stuff. So it's a mixture of that. We all have a whole bunch of all of those. So this is who has the most sattvika guna there. So then they said, okay, Bhrigu, who was the most senior of those rishis there, said, Bhrigu, you go and then you go test all of these rishis, because Bhrigu has access to all of them. Says, you go test all these gods to say who has the most sattvic guna. Now, we all can commit offenses in 3 ways. Like we say, Kayena, Vacha, Manasendri. If you just pick those 3, Kaya means with our body, something physically. Then Manas with our mind, or with our speech. So with any of these things, you can commit offenses, right? So to do this, what Bhrigu does is he goes to the various, first he goes to Brahma. He goes to Brahma and then, he goes there, and Brahma has a little bit of rajas in him because he needs to have the desire or the passion to be wanting to create. If Brahma doesn't have a little bit of rajoguna, then there's going to be no creation, right? Because he doesn't have any desire. So Brahma has a little bit of rajas in it. So what Bhrigu does, is when he goes there, he fails to show respect to Brahma. So he doesn't, prostrate or do namaskarams or bow or any of that stuff. So when he doesn't do that, Brahma begins to question, why is Bhrigu acting like that? And Brahma gets a little offended that Bhrigu is not actually reacting to that. So that is a mind, because you offer respects through your mind. So with this mind, he committed an offense towards Brahma of not respecting Brahma, and Brahma got a little offended. Next, he goes to Kailasa. He goes to Kailasa, and there he goes and then he verbally assaults Shiva. So very similar to what Daksha had done. So he verbally assaults Shiva, saying that you are like what do you call, you're living in Smashana. You don't dress like this. You are this. You're followed by bhutas and pretas and all of this. So he verbally assaults Shiva, which again, all of these gods are the highest of gods, so they don't really get angry in the sense we get angry. But Shiva, he is little offended by what Brigu said, but he doesn't do anything, right? Like very similar to Daksha, he doesn't do anything against it. So that was the second one. So he offended by speech and then he offended with his mind. Then finally he comes to Twamagat. Then finally he comes to you or Narayana in this stanza. Bhragum kila saraswati, long E, nikata basinas tapasaha. So add a visarga at the end there, comma. Next line is goes away. Trimurtishu samadishan nadika. Samadishan adika, but the in and a become a double na there. Samadishan nadika sattvatam veditum. Ayam punaranadarad. So the do that is there, I'm just breaking into it and u. Punaranadarad udita ruddha roshe vidhau, comma. Harepi cha jihimsishau girijaya dhrite twamagat. Bhragum kila saraswati nikatavasinastapasaha trimurtishu samadishan adhika sattvatam veditum ayam punaranadarat udita ruddha roshe vidhau harepi cha jihimsishau girijaya dhrite twamagat.
भृगुं किल सरस्वती निकटवासिनस्तापसाः त्रिमूर्तिषु समादिशन् अधिकसत्त्वतां वेदितुम् अयं पुनरनादरात् उदितरुद्ध ओके उदितरुद्ध रोषे विदौ हरेऽपि च जिहिं शिशौ गिरिजया द्रुते त्वमागात्
Last one.
sorry द्रुते त्वामगात् भृगुं किल सरस्वती निकटवासिनस्तापसाः त्रिमूर्तिषु समादिशन् अधिकसत्त्वतां वेदितुम् अयं पुनरनादरात् उदितरुद्धरोषे विदौ हरेऽपि च जिहिंसिषौ गिरिजया द्रुते त्वामगात्
भृगं किल सरस्वती निकटवासिनस्तापसाः त्रिमूर्तिषु समादिशन् अधिकसत्त्वतां वेदितुम् अयं पुनरनादरादु उदिररुद्धरोषे विधौ हरेऽपि च जिहिंसिषौ गिरिजाधृते त्वामगात्.
Last line, Girijaya Dhrite Twamagat.
गिरिजयाधृते त्वामगात्. भृगुं किल सरस्वती निकटवासिनस्तापसाः त्रिमूर्तिषु सदाशनन् अधिकसत्त्वतां वेदितुम् अयं पुनरनारदरादु उदिररुद्धरोषे विधौ हरेऽपि च सिहिंसिषौ गिरिजय धृते त्वामगात्.
And the third line, Krishnanji, is Punaranadarad. It's like remove the
Naradad.
no,
Okay.
Nadarad.
Nadarad.
Yeah, so that's actually coming from the word Anadarad, which is like lack of not showing respect. So Punar Anadarad. So it's lack not
Punar
showing respect.
Anadarad.
Yeah. Sansa 8. Suptam Ramanka Bhumi Pankajalocanam Twam Vipre Vinignati Padena Mudoti Tastvam Sarvam Kshamaswa Murivarya Bhavet Sadhame Twatpada Chinnamiha Bhushanamityavadihi. So then he goes over to Narayana and Shweta Deepa, where Narayana is lying on Adishesha. And then, he's resting there on Lakshmi Devi as well. And then Bhrigu goes there, and then he's committed offense with his words with Shiva and with his mind with Brahma. So now he has to do it with his kaya, with his body. So he goes and then he kicks Narayana in the chest. So when he kicks Narayana in the chest, you can see how much Narayana gets offended. At that time, Narayana realizes that he didn't notice Bhrigu coming. And then he then steps up. And then, like he said, I'm always a Bhakta Das. I'm always a servant of my devotees. So he then steps up and says, I apologize that I didn't see you actually coming and I didn't welcome you enough. And then he says that, your feet, O Bhrigu Muni, are very tender and my heart is very strong, or my chest is very strong. So when you kicked it, right, he wants to make sure that your feet did not get affected by it, or feet is not hurting. And with that, he massages Bhrigu's feet. Very similar to how he did Kuchelas, where Krishna did Kuchelas. So with this, when this happens, then Bhrigu feels completely satisfied that, what, this is pure sattva. There is absolutely no desire, passion, or any amount of rajas which is in Narayana, because the Supreme Brahman cannot have any rajas or tamo guna. It has to be pure sattva guna, right? The Supreme Consciousness. So with that, he comes, and then here Narayana says that the kick you gave me in my chest will be a chinnam, will be a mark, which I will keep it for the rest, right? For the rest of the time, it will remain as a mark. That's saying that, my devotees can kick me, right? And I will not get offended by that. Suktam Ramanka Bhuvi Pankaja Lochanam Tvam, Vipre Vinignati Padena Mudoti Tvam Sarvam Kshamaswa Munivarya Bhavet Sadame, Tvat Pada Chinnamiha Bhushanam Ityavad. Just breaking at that. Bhushan means that the kick that you gave me in the mark that got created will remain as a Bhushanam, will remain as an ornament or a decoration on my chest. Bhushanam Ityavadihi.
Rajesh ji, I heard that, I don't know whether it's correct. So Bhrigu Munivar had some kind of something in his feet, That is why he had that attitude. So when he kicked Narayana, he just kind of pressed it in his padam, that one. So immediately his thing went down,
Okay.
Then he just surrendered, That's the story I have heard. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I heard that too. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it is. It's just not mentioned here, but maybe that is the case. Yeah. Suktam Ramanka Bhuvi Pankajalochanam Tvam Vipre Vinignati Padena Mudoti Thastvam Sarvam Kshamaswa Munivarya Bhavet Sadame Tvatpada Chinnamiha Bhushanamityavadihi.
सुप्तं रमाङ्गभुवि पङ्कजलोचनं त्वां विप्रे विनिघ्नति पतेन मुदोति तस्त्वं सर्वं क्षमस्व मुनिवर्य भवेत् सदा मे त्वत्पादचिह्नमिह भूषणम् इत्यवादीः सुप्तं रमाङ्गभुवि पङ्कजलोचनं त्वां विप्रे विनिघ्नति पतेन मुदोति तस्त्वं सर्वं क्षमस्व मुनिवर्य भवेत् सदा मे त्वत्पादचिह्नमिह भूषणम् इत्यवादीः
सुप्तं रमाङ्गभुवि पङ्कजलोचनं त्वां विप्रे विनिघ्नति पदेन मुदोदितस्त्वं सर्वं क्षमस्व मुनिवर्य भवेत् सदा मे त्वत्पादचिह्नमिह भूषणमित्यवादिः सुप्तं रमाङ्गभुवि पङ्कजलोचनं त्वां विप्रे विनिघ्नति पदेन मुदोदितस्त्वं सर्वं क्षमस्व मुनिवर्य भवेत् सदा मे त्वत्पादचिह्नमिह भूषणमित्यवादिः.
The last vadihi, just a little bit long either. Bhushanamityavadihi. Okay, long.
भूषणमित्यवादिः.
That's a 9. Nishchityate cha sudrudham tvai baddha bhavaha sarasvata munivaradhadire vimoksham tvameva machyuta punaschuti doshahinam sattvo chayekatanumeva vayam bhajamaha. So So he comes back to the place where all the other rishis are on the banks of Saraswati and describes the experience that he had with all of them. So with that experience that Bhrigu had, everybody's doubts were clear that that Narayana, it's full of peace, full of sattvika guna, which is absolutely essential, right, for all the principles of religion. Even in the Ashtanga Yoga, the first step itself says that you have to be calm no matter what the situation is. You should be able to control your mind, which is the first step in all of that, and that's what is the base out of which all the other things are built on. So anyway, so with that story also comes to an end. Nishchitya te cha sudrudham त्वयि बद्धभावाः, सारस्वता मुनिवरा धदिरे विमोक्षं त्वाम् एवम् अच्युत पुनश्च्युति दोषहीनं, सत्वोच्चयैक, so that we cannot break that word, सत्वोच्चयैक तनुमेव वयं भजामः. So this way I worship that form of yours which is full of sattvika guna with absolutely no dosham in that. Dosham here, it means that no other combination of rajas or tamas. Nishchityate cha sudrudham tvayi baddha bhavaha sarasvata munivaradhadire vimoksham tvameva machyuta punaschuti doshahinam sattvochayekatanumeva vayam bhajamaha.
निश्चित्यते च सुदृढं त्वयि भक्तभावाः सारस्वता मुनिवराधतिरे विमोक्षं त्वामेवमच्युत पुनश्च्युतिदोषहीनं सत्वोच्चयैकदनुमेव वयं भजामहे.
Sorry, last one. Bhajamaha.
Oh, sorry. Bhajamaha. निश्चित्यते सुदृढं त्वयि भक्तभावाः सारस्वता मुनिवराधतिरे विमोक्षं त्वामेवमच्युत पुनश्च्युतिदोषहीनं सत्वोच्चयैकदनुमेव वयं भजामः.
निश्चित्यते च सुदृढं त्वयि बन्धभावः सारस्वता मुनिवराधतिरे विमोक्षं त्वामेवमच्युत पुनश्च्युतिदोषहीनं सत्तोच्चैकतनुमेव वयं भजामः.
The first line, last word, Krishnaji. Baddha bhavaha.
Bhakta bhavaha निश्चित्यते च सुदृढं त्वयि बद्धभावाः सारस्वता मुनिवराधतिरे विमोक्षं त्वामेवमच्युत पुनश्च्युतिदोषहीनं सत्तोच्चैकतनुमेव वयं भजामः.
Sunset 10. In this tune is different. Four-liner tune. Jagat srishtyaadhau tvam nigama nivahairvandibhiriv stutam vishno satchit paramarasa nirdvaita vapusham paratmanam bhuman pashuma vanita bhagya nivaham paritapashrantyai pavanapuravasin bharibhaje. Just a wrap up of this with the just description, singing the praise. So saying that, at the very beginning of the creation, Jagat Srishtiyado, at the very beginning of the creation, just like how we praise each other, you, O Narayana, were praised by singing of the Vedas. The whole Vedas are directed towards you, singing your praise. And then you, who is Satchit Parama Rasa, you are full of the bliss, the supreme consciousness bliss, which is just personified in a certain form. And you are also the merits. If you take the punyam that all the gopikas have done, the Pashupa Vanita refers to the women of the cowherd women. You take all of their merits and all of their punyams and you personify it in the form of a person. You are that. So, oh, that Guru Arappa, please eradicate Paritapa Shante, all the sorrows and all the ailments I have. Please eradicate. So, it's kind of like a prayer to wrap this thing up. Jagat Srishtiyadau Tvam Nigama Nivahair Vandibhiriva, Stutam Vishnu Satchit Parama Rasa Nirdvaita Vapusham, non-dual consciousness, Parama Nihi Advaita Vapusham, Paratmanam bhuman pashupa vanita bhagya nivaham, comma, paritapa shrantye pavanapura vasin paribhaje. Jagat-srishtyaadau tvam nigama-nivahairbandibhiriva stutam Vishnu Satchit Paramarasa-nirdvaita-vapusham Paratmanam Bhuman Pashupavanita Bhagya-nivaham Paritapashrantyai Pavanapuravasin Paribhaje.
जगत्सृष्ट्यादौ त्वां निगमनिवहैर्वन्दिभिरिव स्तुतं विष्णु सच्चित् परमरसनिर्द्वैतवपुषं परात्मानं भूमन् पशुपवनिता भाग्यनिवहं परितापश्रान्त्यै पवनपुरवासिन् परिभजे जगत्सृष्ट्यादौ त्वां निगमनिवहैर्वन्दिभिरिव स्तुतं विष्णु सच्चित् परमरसनिर्द्वैतवपुषं परात्मानं भूमन् पशुपवनिता भाग्यनिवहं परितापश्रान्त्यै पवनपुरवासिन् परिभजे
जगत्स्रष्ट्वादौ त्वां निगमनिवहैर्वन्दिभिरिव स्तुतं विष्णो सच्चेत् परमरसनिर्द्वैतवपुषं परात्मानं भूमन् पशुपवनिता भाग्यनिवहं परीतापाश्रान्त्यै पवनपुरवासिन् परिभजे जगत्सृष्ट्यादौ त्वां निगमनिवहैर्वन्दिभिरिव स्तुतं विष्णो सच्चेत् परमरसनिर्द्वैतवपुषं परात्मानं भूमन् पशुपवनिता भाग्यं निवहं परीतापाश्रान्त्यै पवनपुरवासिन् परिभजे.
Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha.
Krishna.
Okay, start with 90. So from now, 90 to 100, there's absolutely no story anywhere. So it is going to be like hardcore philosophy, primarily from 91. Okay, 90 still is a little bit, 90 is Agamadinam. Agamadinam is all the scriptures that we have. Parama Tatparya Nirupanam, the primary purpose of all the scriptures. And it's essentially this whole Dasakam is nothing but he's just going to pick all the various things which are said in the various scriptures to say that Narayana is the greatest. That is the net takeaway of this whole Dasakam, one line. But that's what the whole thing is going to be. So I won't necessarily say every stanza meaning, but anyway, from here, so as the context setting is, like towards the end, Krishna gives Uddhava, like we saw in Dashakam 88, there was a stanza which came that he gave Uddhava the knowledge. It's called Uddhava Gita. So, which is very similar to Bhagavad Gita, which he taught Arjuna. So Uddhava Gita taught to Uddhava, which is exactly this. That was said to Arjuna, this is said to Uddhava. The core concepts are still the same, right? It talks about the different types of karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga. It talks about the consciousness, talks about all of that. So that is pretty much going to be 91 to 97. Is just 6 chapters, 6 dashakams is fully just philosophical stuff, which we'll cover next time. But anyway, 90 is just saying that the primary purpose of all the scriptures, what they call out. Stanza 1. Brikabhrigumuni mohin yambariishadivritteshu aitava hi mahatvam sarva sharvadi chaitram stitamiha paramatman nishkalarvagabhinnam kimapi yadavabhatam taddi rupam tavaiva. It says, that we've seen through several examples through Brikasura, which we saw in the 89th chapter, through Bhrigu's example, which we saw in the 89th chapter, through Ambarisha Charitram, which we saw in Dashakam 33, through Mohini Avataram, which we saw in 29, and through all of these examples that we saw in the Krishna Avataram, saying that anytime, any of these things happen, they've always proven that, oh, Narayana, you are the Supreme Lord. Ultimately, Ambarisha also ran to everybody. Ambarisha ran to Brahma. Remember, Durvasa gave him the curse on the Dwadashi day. He first went to Brahma, then he went to Shiva, then finally went to Narayana. And Narayana gave him the solution of saying, you have to go back to Ambarisha. He's the greatest of my disciple. I can't do anything. So in all of these examples, it is kind of showing that, you are the supreme Lord amongst everybody. And it is well known. And even Krishna Avataram, it summarized at one of the Dasakam saying that how he had won over all the other demigods who are there, Indra, Varuna, and Brahma, all of them, Narayana is the greatest. So that is there. And your form, oh Narayana, it can be like a nirguna form, which is like absolutely formless. So you don't have a form at all, nirguna form. But because the Brahman is formless, but you can also take a saguna form. You can also take a form which is understandable and describable by everybody else. So you can exist in both of that form, right? So you are both saguna form and nirguna form. You are the only one who can be in that form. So with that, I know my salutations or namaskarams to you, who shines in both of those forms. Brika Bhrigu Muni Mohin Yambarishadu, because it's Mohini and Ambarisha. So Mohin Yambarishadi Vritteshu. So put a shu at the end of that line, comma. Vritteshu. Next, if you have a Ishwai, Shwai, it just becomes IE. So I Tava hi Mahatvam Sarva Sharvadi Jaitram Stitamiha Paramatman Nishkalar Vaga Bhinnam, comma, Kimapi Yadava Bhatam Tadhi Rupam Tavaiva. Brikabhrugumuni Mohin Yambarishadi Vritteshu Ayitavahi Mahatvam Sarva Sharvadi Jaitram Stitamiha Paramatman Nishkalarvaga Bhinnam Kimapi Yadava Bhatam Tadhi Rupam Tavaiva.
भृगभृगुमुनिमोहिन्यम्बरीषादिवृत्तेषु अयि तव हि महत्त्वं सर्वशर्वादिजैत्रं स्थितमिह परमात्मन् निष्कलार्वागभिन्नं किमपि यदवपादं तद्दिरूपं तदैव भृगभृगुमुनिमोहिन्यम्बरीषादिवृत्तेषु अयि तव हि महत्त्वं सर्वशर्वादिजैत्रं स्थितितमिह परमात्मन्निष्कलार्वागभिन्नं किमपि यदवापादं तत्तिरूपं तदैव.
The third line, first word, Stitamiha.
Every time I say stitimiha, sorry.
Yeah.
Stitamiha. Yeah.
भृगभृगमुनिमोहिन्यम् अम्बरीषादिवृत्तेषु आयितव हि महत्त्वं सर्वशर्वादिजैत्रम् स्थितमिह परमात्मन्निष्कलार्वागभिन्नं किमपि यतवभादं धत्ति रूपं तवैव. भृगभृगमुनिमोहिन्यमम्बरीषादिवृत्तेषु अयि तव हि महत्त्वं सर्वशर्वादिजैत्रं स्थितमिह परमात्मन्निष्कलार्वागभिन्नं किमपि यतव भादं दत्ति रूपं तदैव.
Tavaiva, last word, Tavaiva.
तवैव.
And the first line, Krishnaji, Mohin Yam Yason, Mohin Yambarishadi.
Mohin Yambarishadi.
Yeah, correct. Which is Mohini and Ambarisha. So it's me and Adar. Stanza 2. So I think this one tune changes and that remains. Next set of stanzas are the same tune. Murtetraheshwara Sadashiva Panchakam Hyate Prahuh Paratmavapurev Sadashivosmin Tatreshwarastu Sabikuntha Padastvameva Tritvam Punarbhajasi Satya Pade Tribhage. See the meaning of 2 and 3 together. Murti Trayeshwara Sadashiva Panchakam Yate, comma, Prahuhu, put a F, Prahuh Paratma Vapureva Sadashivosmin Tatreshwarastu Sa Vikuntha Padas Tvameva, comma, Tritvam Punar Bhajasi Satyapade Tribhage. Murtetraheshwara Sadashiva Panchakam Yate Prahuh Paratmavapureva Sadashivosmin Tatreshwarastu Savikunthapadastvameva Tritvam Punarbhajasi Satyapade Tribhage.
मूर्तित्रयेश्वर सदाशिवपञ्चकं यत् प्राहुः परात्मवपुरेव सदाशिवोऽस्मिन् तत्रेश्वरस्तु स विकुण्ठपदस्त्वमेव त्रित्वं पुनर्भजसि सत्यपदे त्रिभागे मूर्तित्रयेश्वर सदाशिवपञ्चकं यत् प्राहुः परात्मवपुरेव सदाशिवोऽस्मिन् तत्रेश्वरस्तु स विकुण्ठपदस्त्वमेव त्रित्वं पुनर्भजसि सत्यपदे त्रिभागे
मूर्तित्रयेश्वर सदाशिव पञ्चकं यत् बाहुः परात्मवपुरेव सदाशिवोऽस्मिन् तत्रेश्वरस्तु सविकुण्ठपदस्त्वमेव त्रित्वं पुनर्भजसि सत्यपदे त्रिभागे मूर्तित्रयेश्वर सदाशिव पञ्चकं यत् बाहुः परात्मवपुरेव सदाशिवोऽस्मिन् तत्रेश्वरेस्तु सविकुण्ठपदस्त्वमेव त्रित्वं पुनर्भजसि सत्यपदे त्रिभागे.
Third line, first word. Tatreshwarastu.
तत्रेश्वरस्तु.
Yeah. Stanza 3. Tatrapi sattvikatanuം तव विष्णुमाहुः धाता तु सत्त्वविरलो रजसैव पूर्णः सत्त्वोत्कटत्वमपि चास्ति तमो विकारचेष्टादिकं च तव शङ्करनाम्नि मूर्तौ. This little bit goes back to long time back when we did Dasakam 5, 6, 7, etc. about the Purusha, and then the Bhagavan who existed outside of the Brahmandam, and then how the Brahmandam was created, and first the Satyaloka, and then Brahma came in Satyaloka, all of that. So it kind of little bit brings back that concept, saying that supreme Brahman who is there, who then takes different purposes, right? And the different purposes and all with the name, when we say Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, in each Brahmandam, they all reside in Satyaloka. And this place called Vaikuntham, which is a region which is far away from all of this Brahmandam and sitting outside of this Brahmandam, because it is not bound by anything which is inside the Brahmandam, right? Anybody inside the Brahmandam has a starting point, ending point, a purpose. This Vaikuntham doesn't have any of that. So he says that Supreme Lord who sits in Vaikuntham, he is the person who then takes on these various names and shapes and forms for different purposes. And this thing, even when Narayana comes during the Daksha Charitram, Daksha Yajnam, when it happens, talking about Bhagavatam, in that when he comes at the very end, he tells everybody, because Daksha, everybody insults Shiva, right? And all that at the very end, he comes and says that all this Brahma, Shiva, Vishnu, all these different names who are there are just different manifestations of the same person who is there. By person, I'm using the word loosely as a person. It's not a person, right? So that Brahman, that one which lives in Vaikuntham, that takes different forms and shapes for different purposes in each of that. And those are called Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu, because each of them have a certain purpose to play in this Brahmandam. One has, little bit Rajo Guna for the purpose of creation. One has a little Tamasic Guna because it's a cyclical thing. So things have to get destroyed for the next thing to get created, right? So because of that, there is a Sattvam, Rajo, Tamo Guna in each of the beings who are there, but it is no different. They're all the same things. It is like saying one left hand of mine versus the right hand of mine, and ultimately it belongs to me, right? So that is a message that Narayana gives at everybody who's present, which is what it is saying, that the Trimurtis, the way we define today, are just all one. It is just different manifestations of that one supreme being in various forms, in various shapes, for various purposes, that they all are present, right? And they all are present within the Brahmandam in the Satyaloka, but the main Vaikuntham which is there is past and well beyond all of that. Tatrapi Sattvika Thanum. So when that takes a full Sattvic form, Thanum, it means a body. So when that takes a full Sattvika Thanum, Tava Vishnu Mahuhu, Sada Visarga, So that your sattvic form is called as Vishnu, Vishnu Mahuhu, comma. Next, that ir goes away. Dhata tu sattva viralo rajasaiva purnaha. So Brahma, which is dhata, is little bit of rajas present in it. Sattvotkatatvamapi, that's one word. Sattvotkatatvamapi chasti tamo vikara, put a plus. Cheshtadi kancha tava shankara namni murthau. So when that is present with a little bit of tamo guna, which is required for the cycling, the entire cycle to happen, then it is called a shankara, that form of yours. So that last two lines are together. Tatrapi sattvikathanum tava vishnumahuhu dhata tu sattva viralo rajasaiva purnaha sattvotkatatvamapi chasti tamo vikara cheshtadikancha tava shankaranam nimurtau.
तत्रापि सात्विकतनुं तव विष्णुमाहुः दाता तु सत्त्वविरलो रजसैव पूर्णः सत्त्वोद्घटत्वमपि चास्ति तमो विकारचेष्टादिकञ्च तव शङ्करनाम्नि मूर्तौ तत्रापि सात्विकतनुं तव विष्णुमाहुः दाता तु सत्त्वविरलो रजसैव पूर्णः सत्त्वोद्घटत्वमपि चास्ति तमो विकारचेष्टादिकञ्च तव शङ्करनाम्नि मूर्तौ
तत्रापि स्वात्तिकतनुं तव विष्णुमाहुः दधातु सत्त्वविरलो रजसैव पूर्णः सत्त्वोत्कटत्वमपि चास्ति तमो विकारचेष्टादिकं च तव शङ्करनाम्नि मूर्तौ
Second line, Krishnaji, dhatatu. Second line.
धातातु तत्रापि स्वात्तिकतनुं तव विष्णुमाहुः धातातु सत्त्वविरलो रजसैव पूर्णः सत्त्वोत्कटत्वमपि चास्ति तमो विकारचेष्टादिकं च तव शङ्करनाम्नि मूर्तौ.
Stanza 3. Tam chatrumurtyati gatam parapurusham tvam sarvatmanapi khalu sarvamayatva hetoho shamsantyupasana vidhau tadapi swatastu twadrupamithyati dhridam bahunah pramanam. A little bit continuation of that. He says there's enough pramanam, there's enough proof to actually say that this is the case. And like we said earlier, it says, in this case, Narayana says that whether you worship Brahma or Shiva or Mahavishnu, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, everything comes over to the same source. So you can follow any of the paths there. There's no mandated, that you have to do this, you have to do that. You can worship any deity of your choice because ultimately everything comes from that one Purusha or Brahman who doesn't have any form. So it doesn't matter. You can assume any form of people you want and worship that, and which is a little bit of continuation, saying that you are beyond even those Trinity, because the Trinity have certain purpose and certain duties in each Brahmandam, and there are so many such Brahmandams which are actually there, right? So there are like situations where once Brahma had come to Krishna to meet, and Krishna said, at the time that which Brahmandam are you coming from? Because every Brahmandam has a Brahma. So similarly, there's every Brahmandam as a Shiva and Vishnu to serve the function of it. But at the end of the day, they are all coming from the same person, Brahman, who's beyond all of that. A little bit same continuation here. Tam cha trimurtyati gatam para purusham tvam, sharvatmanapi khalu sarva mayatva hetoho shamsantyupasana vidhau tadapi swatastu, twadrupam ityati, you can break it that ma if you want, twadrupam ityati dridham bahu naha, put a f, bahu naf pramanam. Tam chatrimurtyati gatam parapurusham tvam sharvatmanapi khalu sarvamayatva hetoho shamsantyupasana vidhau tadapi swatastu twadrupamityati dridham bahunah pramanam.
तं च त्रिमूर्त्यतिगतं परपूरुषं त्वां सर्वात्मनापि खलु सर्वमयत्वहेतोः शंसन्त्यभासनविधौ तदपि स्वदस्तु त्वत्रूपमित्यतिदृढं दृढं बहुनः प्रमाणं तं च त्रिमूर्त्यैकदिगतं परपूरुषं त्वां सर्वात्मनाभि खलु सर्वमयत्वहेतोः शंसन्ध्यपासनविधौ तदपि त्वतस्तु त्वत्रूपमित्यतिदृढं बहुनः प्रमाणम्.
In the first line, middle word, Trimurtyatigatam.
Trimurtyatigatam.
Yeah, the ya sound there. Trimurtyatigatam.
Okay, yatigatam. Okay.
तं च त्रिमूर्त्यधिगतं परपूरुषं त्वां शौवात्मनाभि खलु सर्वमयत्वहेतो संशन्तुपासनाविधौ तदपि त्वदस्तौ त्वद्रूपमित्यदृदृढं बहुनः प्रमाणम् तं च त्रिमूर्त्यधिगतं पुरपूरुषं त्वां शौवात्मनाभि खलु सर्वमयत्वहेतो संशन्त्युपासनाविधौ तदपि त्वदस्तौ त्वद्रूपमित्यदृढं बहुनः प्रमाणम्.
First line, Parapurusham, that word, Parapurusham Tvam.
Parapurusham Tvam.
And second line, Hetoho, there is a visarga there at the end.
Hetoho.
Yeah. Okay, we'll just switch. And Lalita, you can be a student, and Venkat Garu, you can be a student.
Which Lalita you have
Oh,
to?
Lalita Murli. Yeah, I think Lalita Rajagopalan ille nanikren inniki.
Thank you.
Stanza 5. Shri Shankaropi Bhagavan Sakaleshu Tavat Tvameva Manayati Yo Nahi Pakshapati Tvanishtameva Sahinama Sahasrakadi Vyakyat Bhavat Stuti Parascha Gatim Gatonte. So like we said, the original purpose of this is to say that all scriptures point to you, right, as the main deity. So he's now going to give a few proofs. So he says the great Adi Shankaracharya Bhagavad Pada, he's a sectarian. He does not have support for any religious or any political group of anything of that, right? So even Adi Shankaracharya, who's very neutral, who doesn't favor, even he started the commentary on writing the Vishnu Sahasranama. Like I know some of you know the story. I told people who joined a Vishnu Sahasranamam class that he once had gone to Kashmir because he wanted to write commentary on Lalita Sahasranamam. And then his disciple goes in, because Kashmir used to be the library of where all the things were. So his disciple, he tells person to bring the Lalita Sahasranamam book to write the commentary, but then he brings the Vishnu Sahasranamam, and then he does it 3 times. The same thing happens. Vishnu Sahasranamam keeps coming, and so he himself goes in and asks. There is a person standing there saying, "I keep asking for this. Why do you keep giving me Lalita Sahasranamam?" The person says, "No, you first write commentary on this." So that's why he first wrote the commentary on Vishnu Sahasranamam, and then he wrote the commentary on Lalita. Not to say one is better than the other, but the point being that he started with Vishnu Sahasranamam, and even at the very end, one of his last compositions when he kind of did also was the Bhaja Govindam, where he said, even if you don't do anything, just say the word Govinda, right? And that should be enough. You don't have to pray anything, chant anything, just doing that should be sufficient. And he said, even at the end, even Bhaja Govindam, it says one of that, at least listen to Gita once, right? And go take a dip in Gyan just once. So all of that. So even he dropped his body singing your praises. So even though he was not attached to one or the other. Shri Shankaropi Bhagavan Sakaleshu Tavat. Put a it at the end of that line, comma. Next line, there's a double it. One of the it will go away. Tvameva manayati yo nahi pakshapati. Tvanishtameva sahi nama sahasrakadi. Then put a plus. Vyakhyat. I think some books have Vyakhyat. Just make it Vyakhyat if you don't have it. Vyakhyat Bhavat Stuti Parascha Gatim Gatonte. At the very end, Ante. श्रीशङ्करोऽपि भगवान् सकलेषु तावत् त्वामेव मानयति यो न हि पक्षपाती त्वन्निष्ठमेव स हि नाम सहस्रकादिव्याख्यद्भवत्स्तुतिपरश्च गतिं गतोऽन्ते
श्रीशङ्करोऽपि भगवान् सकलेषु तावत् त्वामेव मानयति यो न हि पक्षपाती त्वन्निष्ठमेव स हि नाम सहस्रकादिव्याज्ञद्भवस्तुति परश्च गतिं गतोऽन्ते श्रीशङ्करोऽपि भगवान् सकलेषु तावत् त्वामेव मानयति यो न हि पक्षपाती त्वन्निष्ठमेव स हि नाम सहस्रकादि व्याख्यद्भवस्तुति परश्च कदिं कदोन्ते
शङ्करोऽपि भगवान् सकलेषु तावत् त्वामेव मानयति यो न हि पक्षपाती त्वन्निष्ठमेव स हि नाम सहस्रकादि व्याख्यद्भवस्तुति परश्च गतिं गतोऽन्ते श्रीशङ्करोऽपि भगवान् सकलेषु तावत् त्वामेव मानयति यो न हि पक्षपाती त्वन्निष्ठमेव स हि नाम सहस्रकादि व्याख्यद्भवस्तुति परश्च गतिं गतोऽन्ते।
Stanza 6. मूर्तित्रयातिकमुवाच च मन्त्रशास्त्रस्यादौ कलाय सुषमं सकलेश्वरं त्वां ध्यानं च निष्कलमसौ प्रणवेकलूक्त्वा त्वामेव तत्र सकलं निजगादनान्यम्. So a little bit more on what Shankara's work. So one of the book that he wrote was called as Prapancha Sara. So where in the Prapancha Sara, he talks about the Prapancham, he talks about the five elements and everything, the science behind the five elements of the Panchabhuta. And in that, he goes into a lot of details around this Purusha and Prakriti and all of that stuff, and also describes Ashtanga Yoga in detail. So here they are saying that even in that, when he talks about Purusha, who does not have any form, and then he goes into the Ashtanga Yoga, the only Sakala form, which means a particular form that Shankara is telling somebody to do meditation on. If you remember the Ashtanga Yoga, 4th Dasakam, in that the only form he's telling to meditate on is your form, which is that of the Kalaya Sushamam. Is it a blue lily form of yours? That form of yours is what even Shankara is telling to me, because you have to have some, when you're starting off, you have to have some form to meditate. You cannot meditate on something formless on day one. So the only form he's telling you to meditate on, even in that, is your form, in that Kalaya Sushamam, in that form. So that's what he's telling. Murti Trayati Ghamuvacha Cha Mantra Shastra, put a plus, Syadau Kalaya Sushamam Sakaleshwaram Tvam. So those two lines are together. Dhyanam cha nishkalamasau pranave khaluktva, comma, Tvameva tatra sakalam nijagada nanyam. मूर्तित्रयातिगमुवाच च मन्त्रशास्त्रस्यादौ कलाय सुषमं सकलेश्वरं त्वां ध्यानं च निष्कलमसौ प्रणवे खलूक्त्वा त्वामेव तत्र सकलं निजगादनान्यम्.
मूर्तित्रयादिकमुवाच च मूर्तित्रयादिकमुवाच च मन्त्रशास्त्रस्यादौ कलाय सुषमं सकलेश्वरं त्वां ध्यानं च निष्कलमसौ प्रणवे खलूक्त्वा त्वामेव तत्र सकलं निजगादनान्यम्. मूर्तित्रयादिकमुवाच च मन्त्रशास्त्रस्यादौ कलाय सुषमं सकलेश्वरं त्वां ध्यानं च निष्कलमसौ प्रणवे खलूक्त्वा त्वामेव तत्र सकलं निजगादनान्यम्.
त्रयातिगमुवाच च मन्त्रशास्त्रस्यादौ कलाय सुषमं सकलेश्वरं त्वां ध्यानं च निष्कलमसौ प्रणवे खलु त्वामेव तत्र सकलं निजगादनान्यम्. मूर्तिस्त्रयातिगमुवाच च मन्त्रशास्त्रस्यादौ कलाय सुषुमं सकलेश्वरं त्वां ध्यानं च निष्कलमसौ प्रणवे खलु त्वामेव तत्र सकलं निजगादनान्यम्.
Canto 7. समस्तसारे च पुराणसङ्ग्रहे विसंशयं त्वन्महिमैव वर्ण्यते त्रिमूर्तियुक्सत्यपदत्रिभागतः परं पदं ते कथितं न शूलिनः. Another reference to another script called as Purana Sangrahe, which is capturing the essence of all the Puranas which are there. It is one book which captures the summary of all of those Puranas. So he says, even in the Purana Sangrahe, he is again, they know who the Adi Shankaracharya who's done that word, he is again referring to the Trimurtis being in the Satyaloka and your form of impersonal Brahman situated outside of the Satyaloka in Vaikuntham. So that is again same thing that we discussed before. He's just giving references, saying even Purana Sangraha, that's what he has said. Samasta Sare cha Purana Sangrahe, Disamshayam Twan Mahimaiva Varnyate. So it's only your Mahima he's calling out in that. Twan Mahimaiva Varnyate. Trimurti Yuk Satyapada Tribhagataha. Put a F and put a plus. Tribhagataf Param Padam Te Katitham Na Shulinaha. समस्तसारे च पुराणसङ्ग्रहे विसंशयं त्वन्महिमैव वर्ण्यते त्रिमूर्तियुक्सत्यपदत्रिभागतः परं पदं ते कथितं न शूलिनः.
समस्तसारे च पुराणसङ्ग्रहे विसंशयं त्वन्महिमैव वर्ण्यते त्रिमूर्तियुक्सत्यपदत्रिभागतः परं पदं ते कथितं न शूलिनः. समस्तसारे च पुराणसङ्ग्रहे विसंशयं त्वन्महिमैव वर्ण्यते त्रिमूर्तियुक्सत्यपदत्रिभागतः परं पदं ते कथितं न शूलिनः.
मस्तसारे च पुराणसङ्ग्रहे विसंशयं तन्महिमैव वर्ण्यते त्रिमूर्तियुक्सत्यपदत्रिभागतः परं पदं ते कथितं न शूलिनः. समस्तसारे च पुराणसङ्ग्रहे विसंशयं तन्महिमैव वर्ण्यते त्रिमूर्तियुक्सत्यपदत्रिभागतः परं पदं ते कथितं न शूलिनः.
यद्ब्राह्मकल्प इह भागवत द्वितीयस्कन्धोदितं वपुरनावृतमीशधात्रे तस्यैव नाम हरिशर्वमुखं जगाद श्रीमाधव शिवपरोऽपि पुराणसारे. Now he is referring to in Brahma Kalpa, which is the first day of Brahma. Remember Dasakam 7, we spoke about it when Brahma first day, when he's not first, day, first year, first day. So when he doesn't do, then he hears the word tapa, tapa, and then he meditates and then he sees Vaikuntham. So he says in Srimad Bhagavatas Dvitiya Skanda, in the second skanda of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is what is there in the Dasakam 7 of Narayaneeyam, it was again mentioned that even when Brahma came in the first day of Brahma, he only saw you. There was nothing, there's absolutely nothing in existence. The only thing he could see was Vaikuntham, and in that he saw you, right? And there was nobody else at that time. Even Brahma was non-existent. So even at that time, he only saw you. So again, another reference to Srimad Bhagavatam to say that, Narayana is the Supreme Lord there. Yet Brahmakalpa iha Bhagavata Dvitiya, put a plus, Dvitiya Skandhoditam. So second skandha. Dvitiya Skandhoditam Vapuranavritamisha Dhatre. That's one word. Don't know how to break it. So those first two lines are together. Tasyeva Nama Hari Sharva Mukham Jagada, comma. Shri Madhavaha, put a ish. Sri Madhavash Shiva Paropi Purana Sare. So another person, Sri Madhava, who in this work of Purana Sara, one work which he had written, even he referenced the same thing there. Yad Brahma Kalpa iha Bhagavata Dvitiya Skandhoditam Vapurana Vritamisha Dhatre Tasyaiva Nama Harisharva Mukham Jagada श्रीमाधवः शिवपरोऽपि पुराणसारे
यद्ब्राह्मकल्पमिह भागवत द्वितीयस्कन्धोदितं वपुरनावृतमीशदात्रे तस्यैव नाम हरिशर्वमुखं जगाद श्रीमाधवः शिवपरोऽपि पुराणसारे यद्ब्राह्मकल्पमिह भागवत द्वितीयस्कन्धोदितं वपुरनावृतमीशदात्रे तस्यैव नाम हरिशर्वमुखं जगाद श्रीमाधवः शिवपरोऽपि पुराणसारे
यद्ब्राह्मकल्पमिह भागवत द्वितीयस्कन्धोदितं वपुरनावृतमीश धात्रे तस्यैव नाम हरिशर्वमुखं जगाद श्रीमाधवः शिवपरोऽपि पुराणसारे यद्ब्राह्मकल्पमिह भागवत द्वितीयस्कन्धोदितं वपुरनावृतमीश धात्रे तस्यैव नाम हरिशर्वमुखं जगाद श्रीमाधवः शिवपरोऽपि पुराणसारे।
Stanza 9. ये स्वप्रकृत्यनुगुणा गिरिशं भजन्ते तेषां फलं हि दृढयैव तदीयभक्त्या व्यासो हि तेन कृतवान् अधिकारी हेतोः स्कान्दादिकेषु तव हानिवचोर्तवादैः. Again, clarifies very clearly here that there is nothing stops anybody from praying to a deity of their choice, right? Because that's what he says, according to your prakriti, according to your own nature, according to your own wishes, people can worship any god or goddesses or anybody they want. There's absolutely no stopping of that. And you will attain whatever the desired intentions are by doing that. So nothing says that you only have to worship Shiva or Narayana or Devi or any of that stuff. So, but he then comes back to clarify. However, he says even the greatest of Vyasa, who has access to all this treasure trove of information across all of that, even he has said that at the end of the day, everything merges into one. It all comes from that same source, and that source is you. So that's what even he has said through various Puranas that Vyasa has written. He has said the same thing, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who you want to worship. Ye swa prakrityanuguna girisham bhajante. So some people worship Shiva. Tesham phalam hi dridayeva tadiya bhaktya. Says even people who worship, he's just giving one example of Shiva, even people who worship Shiva with firm devotion, whoever you worship with firm devotion, absolutely they will get phalam. They will get the desired benefits out of that because of their devotion. So there's no hard and fast rule who you need to worship or you cannot worship. So tesham phalam hi dridayeva tadiya bhaktya vyaso hitena kritavan. So just break at that na. Kritavan adhikari hetoho, comma, skandadikeshu tava hani vachortavadeihi. ये स्वप्रकृत्यनुगुणा गिरिशं भजन्ते तेषां फलं हि दृढयैव तदीयभक्त्या व्यासो हि तेन कृतवान् अधिकारी हेतोः स्कान्दादिकेषु तव हानिवचोर्तवादैः.
ये स्वप्रकृत्यनुगुणा गिरिशं भजन्ते तेषां फलं हि दृढयैव तदीयभक्त्या व्यासो हि तेन कृतवान् अधिकारी हेतोः स्कान्दादिकेषु तव हानिवचोर्तवादैः. ये स्वप्रकृत्यनुगुणा गिरिशं भजन्ते तेषां फलं हि दृढयैव तदीयभक्त्या व्यासो हि तेन कृतवान् अधिकारी हेतोः स्कान्दादिकेषु तव हानिवचोर्तवादैः.
ये स्वप्रकृत्यानुगुणा गिरिशं भजन्ते तेषां फलं हि दृढयैव तदीयभक्त्या व्यासो हि तेन कृतवान् अधिकारी हेतोः स्कान्दादिकेषु तव हानिवचोर्दवादैः. ये स्वप्रकृत्यनुगुणा गिरिशं भजन्ते तेषां फलं हि दृढयैव तदीयभक्त्या व्यासो हि तेन कृतवान् अधिकारी हेतोः स्कान्दादिकेषु तव हानि वचोर्धवादैः
भूतार्थकीर्तिरनुवादविरुद्धबाधौ त्रेधार्थवादगतयः खलु रोचनार्ताः स्कान्दादिकेषु बहवोऽत्र विरुद्धवादाः त्वत्तात्मसत्त्वपरिभूत्युपशिक्षणाध्याः. Combine 10 and 11 together, meaning Bhutartha Kirtir Anuvada. If you want to break it, that Kirtir Anuvada Viruddha Vadau, comma, Tredhartha Vada Gatayaha, put the ih to join Gatayah, Khalu Rochanartaha, Skandadikeshu Bahavotra Viruddha Vadaha, add a Visargan comma, Vadaha. Next line is goes away. Tvattama Sattva Pari Bhutyupashikshanaadhyaha. That's one word. Bhutyupashikshanaadhyaha. भूतार्थकीर्तिरनुवादविरुद्धवादौ त्रेधार्थवादगतयः खलु रोचनार्ताः स्कान्दादिकेषु बहवोऽत्र विरुद्धवादाः त्वत्तामसत्त्वपरिभूत्युपशिक्षणाध्याः.
भूतार्थकीर्तिरनुवादविरुद्धवादौ त्रेधार्थवादकथयः खलु रोचनार्थाः स्कान्दादिकेषु बहवोऽत्र विरुद्धवादाः त्वत्तामसत्त्वपरिभूत्युपशिक्षणाद्याः. भूतार्थकीर्तिरनुवादविरुद्धवादौ त्रेतार्थवादकथयः खलु रोचनार्ताः स्कान्दादिकेषु बहवोऽत्र विरुद्धवादाः त्वत्तामसत्त्वपरिभूत्युपशिक्षणाद्याः.
भूतार्धकीर्तिरनुवादविरुद्धवादौ त्रेधार्धवादगतयः खलु रोचनार्धाः स्कान्दादिकेषु बहवोऽत्र विरुद्धवादा त्वत्तामसत्त्वपरिभूत्युपशिक्षणाद्याः.
A third line, Vadaha. There's a visarga there. Third line end.
Vadaha, okay. भूतार्धकीर्तिरनुवादविरुद्धवादौ त्रेधार्धवादगतयः खलु रोचनार्धाः स्कान्दादिकेषु बहवोऽत्र विरुद्धवादाः त्वत्तामसत्त्वपरिभूत्युपशिक्षणाद्याः.
Stanza 11. यत्किञ्चिदप्यविदुषापि विभो मयोक्तं तन्मन्त्रशास्त्रवचनाद्यभिदृष्टमेव व्यासोक्तिसारमयभागवतोपगीत क्लेशान् विधूय कुरु भक्तिभरं परात्मन्. Just summarizing this, he says, even if in some other texts or some other places, if they have downplayed and said Narayana is not the Supreme Lord, he says, through the Atharvada, through the art of debate, it can be proved otherwise. He says, and finally, he summarizes by saying that whatever is been said is, is because of, see, we don't know everything, right? So he says, is whatever ignorance we have is what we are saying, but he says the references I have made is from what works of Adi Shankaracharya and the work of Veda Vyasa, who was really given so much, right? And then he says the example he's quoting here is Veda Vyasa, who when he has, and I think I might have told the story in the past. So Veda Vyasa compiled the Vedas, right? He didn't write the Vedas, he compiled it into 4 because he felt that in Dwapara Yugam, he felt that, the people will not be able to learn all the Vedas together. So they at least can learn one Veda. So he compiled it into the 4 Vedas. Then he thought it is so hard, the Vedas, that not everybody will have access to it because accessibility was a big issue at the time. So then he wrote Mahabharata because he said Mahabharata, which had Bhagavad Gita inside of it, Mahabharata, which has Vishnu Sahasranamam inside of it, is sufficient for the common man because they can read it at least and they can understand from the stories, they will get the gist of what is being told, of how to lead a good life. So he compiled Mahabharata. Even then, he was not happy with himself, right? He was very dissatisfied. Imagine if you're doing all this, Vyasa felt that he has not given enough to the community, right? So he was very upset about it. And then when Lord Narada comes and then says, why are you so dissatisfied? He says, somehow I feel like I have not done enough, because even this is not going to get people closer to Bhagavan. That's what Vyasa felt. So that's when Narada comes and tells him, in the problem with all of these things that you did, with the Vedas and with Mahabharata and all of this, is it doesn't have the bhakti as the center of it. Bhakti is in the periphery of all of these things. It talks a lot about Jnana Yogam. It talks about a lot of knowledge, how to do things, how not to do things, but it does not have Bhakti in the middle of it. And you have to put Krishna as the hero of it and put him in the middle of all of these things. Because in Mahabharata, Krishna is on the side. There's so many things that happen, right? So that's when Vyasa starts compiling the Srimad Bhagavatam of 18,000 stanzas, right? And then he put the Dashamaskandam kind of the key portion of it with Krishna. So he says that Vyasa, that's why he refers to the Bhagavatopa Gita. So he then compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam, putting you, O Narayana, whose incarnation as Krishna, as the center of it, to drive more bhakti towards everybody. So those are all the reference points. That's how he summarizes this, saying, Guru Varapa, please eradicate the ailments and give me bhakti bharam. Please give me supreme devotion towards you. Yet kinchit. So I'm just going to break at the da if you want. Kinchit apya vidushapi. So it and the other. Kinchit apya vidushapi vibho mayoktam, comma. Tan mantra shastra vachanadhyabhidrishtameva. Cannot break that word. Vachanadhyabhidrishtameva. Vyasokti sara maya bhagavatopagita, comma. Kleshan vidhuya kuru bhakti bharam paratman. यत्किञ्चिदप्यविदुषापि विभो मह्योक्तं तन्मन्त्रशास्त्रवचनाध्यभिदृष्टमेव व्यासोक्तिसारमयभागवतोपगीत क्लेशान् विधूय कुरु भक्तिभरं परात्मन्.
यत्किञ्चिदप्यविदुषापि विभो मयोक्तं तन्मन्त्रशास्त्रवचनाद्यभिदृष्टमेव व्यासोक्तिसारमयभागवतोपगीत क्लेशान् विधूय कुरु भक्तिभरं परात्मन्. यत्किञ्चिदप्यविदुषापि विभो मयोक्तं तन्मन्त्रशास्त्रवचनाद्यभिदृष्टमेव व्यासोक्तिसारमयभागवतोपगीत क्लेशान् विधूय कुरु भक्तिभरं परात्मन्.
किञ्चिदप्यविदुषापि विभो मयोक्तम् तन्मन्त्रशास्त्रवचनाद्यभिदृष्टमेव व्यासोक्तिसारमयभागवतोपगीत क्लेशान् विधूय कुरु भक्तिभरं परात्मन्. यत्किञ्चिदप्यविदुषापि विभो मयोक्तं तन्मन्त्रशास्त्रवचनाद्यभिदुष्टमेव व्यासोक्तिसारमयभागवतोपगीत क्लेशान् विधूय कुरु भक्तिभरं परात्मन्.
Second line, Venkatgaru, vachanadhyabi drishtameva, dr sound. Okay.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Okay, so the next set of Dashakams, right, from 91, the way it is kind of high level, the way it is categorized is, it's going to cover all the three Bhakti Yogas, Jnana Yoga, and Karma Yoga. It's going to give each of those paths. So first it's going to start with Bhakti Margam, pure Bhakti Margam. Then it's going to do a combination of Bhakti Margam and Karma Yoga. And then it's going to give a lot of details about Jnana Margam. And then once he does all three, then he'll says, how do you take the knowledge you have obtained from all three, eventually leading to enlightenment, which finally then leads to liberation. So that's kind of the next 91 to 95. So, and then 96, 97, he talks more about devotion, giving examples of Markandeya and all of those things, and finally the wrap up. So that's kind of how the next 9 or 10 Dashakams are going to go. All of these are hard. 91 to 100, every single Dashakam is going to be a little tough. It's all the 4-liners. So we'll do a couple of stanzas today. So 91 is Bhakti Swarupa Varnanam. So it says the path of devotion. So how do you get onto the path of Bhakti Margam? What does it mean? Stanza 1. Sri Krishna Tvatpadhopasanam abhayatamam Bhaddamityartha drishte मर्त्यस्यार्थस्य मन्ये व्यपसरति भयं येन सर्वात्मनैव यत्तावत् त्वत्प्रणीतानिह भजन विधीन् आस्थितो मोहमार्गे धावन् अप्यावृताक्षस्खलति न कुहचित् देवदेवाखिलात्मन्. So he starts, by saying that, like, we've seen in Kapilopakyanam in 15 and everything, right? Saying that the only way, so we all have fears of so many different things. He says the only way to get rid of any fear you have, and plus, because the only reason we have fear is, like we say, we always attach to us. I is the center of everything, because you remember, you attach anything else that you like, it is only because those things are attached to you. If something is not attached to you, we don't care about it actually, right? Our family, our house, our possessions, our job, everything is because it is somehow linked to me. Even our friends are linked to us. That's why we like them the most, because they're linked to us. So he says that attachment that I have of I, which drives everything around us. And if any of those relationships or any of those connections are getting strained, then we get very upset because it is impacting us. And our fear, the ultimate fear is anything which is attached to I is going to get disrupted. And you can take a step back and think about it. What is the thing that you worry about the most? And see, the thing that worries about you the most is somehow connected to you. We are not worried about the world fighting. We only worry about it when it somehow affects us, right, at the end of the day. So he says, what is the one way to get rid of that worry or the fear? He says the only way to get rid of that fear is devotion to your feet, getting more devoted to you. And how do you get devotion to somebody? He says the best way is always association with people who are devoted to you. So that satsangam is the only way, because we cannot do all of this on our own all the time. So he says, and wait, no, see, one of the beautiful stanzas is going to come in 91, so I'll wait for that. He says the attachment to people who are related to you is the only way. And once you get attached, then he says, then even if you do not strictly follow whatever is said in Shruti and Smriti, Shruti is referring to the Vedas, which is something which is just heard. Smriti is whatever has been written by people. So Manu Smriti, Narada Smriti, there are a lot of Smritis where they are told the right ways of doing things. He says once somebody has completely surrendered down and is doing things with absolute devotion, they don't have to worry about what Shruti is telling or what Smriti is telling. Right? It's irrelevant because they're completely devoted. So at that time, he says you can just run with your eyes closed and not worry about what he says because you're completely surrendered onto Bhagavan. He says that is the only way to liberate us from all the fears and everything that is actually surrounding us. That's how he starts the saying. That is how important that Bhakti Margam is, which is to complete devotion and complete surrender. Right? That is true Bhakti. Sri Krishna Tvat Padopasanam Abhayatamam, you can break at that ma. Padopasanam Abhayatamam, comma, Bhadda Mityartha Drishhtehe, put a visarga, comma, Drishhtehe. Next line, that ir goes away. First ir. Martyasyartasya manye, comma, Vyapasarati bhayam yena sarvatmanaiva. Shri Krishna Tvatpadhopasanamabhayatamam Baddhamityartha Drishhtehe Martyasyartasya Manye Vyapasarati Bhayam Yena Sarvatmanaiva.
Sri Krishna Tvatpadopasanama Bhayatamam Bhattamidyartha Drishhtehe Martyasyartasya Manye Vyapasarati Bhayam Yena Sarvatmanaiva. Sri Krishna Tvatpadopasanama Bhayatamam Bhattamidyartha Drishhtehe Martyasyartasya Manye Vyapasarati Bhayam Yena Sarvatmanaiva.
Lalita, on the second line, manye kapram pause, okay? So, martyasyartasya manye vyapasarati bhayam yena. Okay.
Okay.
श्रीकृष्णत्वत् पदोपासनमभयतमं बद्धमित्यार्धदृष्टेः मर्त्यस्यार्थस्य मन्ये व्यपसरति भयं येन सर्वात्मनैव. श्रीकृष्णत्वत्पदोपासनमवयतमं बद्धमित्यार्धदृष्टेः मर्त्यस्य तस्य मन्ये व्यपसरति भयं येन सर्वात्मनैव
यत्तावत् त्वत् प्रणीतानिह bhajana vidhin. So that na that is there, put a in and a comma, vidhin, comma. Next word starts with a a. Astito moha marge, comma. Dhavan apyavritakshaha. Cannot break that word. Dhavan apyavritakshaha. Put a is to join. Vritakshas. Skhalati na kuhachit. So you'll have a double dha in Sanskrit. It becomes a it first. Kuhachit, comma. Deva Devakhilatman. So skhalati means to not slip. So it says even once you are completely devoted and you are completely surrendered, so even if you run, with your eyes closed, you will still not slip. You will not fall away from the devotional path, right? Even if there are other moha marge, even if there are other distractions along the way, you will not slip if you are in true devotion and true surrender. यत्तावत्त्वत्प्रणीतानिह भजनविधीन् आस्थितो मोहमार्गे धावन्नप्यावृताक्षस्खलति न कुहचित् देवदेवाखिलात्मन्
यत्तावत्त्वत्प्रणीतानिह भजनविधीन् आस्थितो मोहमार्गे तावन्नव्यावृताक्षस्खलति न गुहचित् देवदेवाखिलात्मन् यत्तावत्त्वत्प्रणीतानिह भजनविधीन् आस्थितो मोहमार्गे धावन्नव्यावृताक्षस्खलति न गुहचित् देवदेवाखिलात्मन्
यत्तावत्त्वत्प्रणीतानिह भजनविधीन् आस्थितो मोहमार्गे धावन्नप्यावृताक्षस्खलति न कुहचिद्देवदेवाखिलात्मन् यत्तावत्त्वत्प्रणीतानिह भजनविधीन् आस्थितो मोहमार्गे धावन्नप्यावृताक्षस्खलति न कुहचिद्देवदेवाखिलात्मन्.
Let's stop here. We won't have time for the next one. Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Sandhanandhavabhudhatmakamanupamitam kaladheshavadibhyam nirmuktam nityamuktam nigamashatasahasrena nirbhasyamanam aspashtam drishtamatre punarurupurushartatmakam brahmatattvam tattavadbhati sakshad gurupavanapure hanta bhagyam jananam कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you, everyone. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Bye.